Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're having some serious fun in the Open Ultra League. Today, I'm breaking out the Spice Cabinet, and we're running the core of level 50 Wigglycott and HISUIan ARCANINE. Wigglycott, due to that Grass Fairy subtyping, can be an interesting core breaker to some teams, and HISUIan ARCANINE is one of, if not the hardest counter to TALONFLAME in the game. It goes without saying, disclaimer time, definitely not a team to run if you're looking to gain elo, but man, getting HISUIan ARCANINE switch locked onto a TALONFLAME is an amazing feeling. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Picking up an amazing lead in the first match, Wigglycott into Swampert. I'm farming up some energy here. Opponent is going to save switch into Skeledirge, and I respond with Ampharos. Ampharos, of course, does have access to Brutal Swing, and Brutal Swing will hit for super effective damage. Opponent fires off the Disarming Voice. I commit the shield. I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Brutal Swing. I'm hoping this is going to be enough to KO here. Brutal Swing barely does not. I should have clicked the second Brutal Swing there, as Ampharos does win CMP. A bit of a misplay by me, as I do keep switch advantage, but at the expense of 2 shields. My opponent is going to be sending back in the Swampert. Swampert has energy. I don't really want to lose the energy, so I am going to fire off the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing gets shielded by my opponent. My opponent not going to let me make it to another move as they fire off the Hydro. Hydro will pick up the knockout. In comes the Wigglycott. I go for the Grass Knot. Opponent makes a beautiful catch, catching the Grass Knot on a Talonflame. I have bad news for the Talonflame, however. In comes HISUIan ARCANINE, which is an absolute wall to Talon. Talon farming up to 100 energy, but I'm at the back-to-back Rock Slides. Rock Slide number 1 gets the shield. HISUIan ARCANINE winning the charge attack priority. This is going to be one-shotting the Talonflame. Back in comes the Swampert. Swampert going to fire off the Hydro Cannon. This is double super effective damage. This is going to absolutely wipe HISUIan ARCANINE off the field. But back in comes the Wigglycott. Wigglycott making it to the Grass Knot, taking down the Swampert, and securing the win. Hopping into the next match, leading Wigglycott into Zygarde, and oh my goodness, this has got to be the hardest Zygarde counter in the game. Zygarde's Dragon Tail's double resisted, Crunch and Earthquake both single resisted. There's nothing it can do. Moonblast connects. This is the last thing the opponent was expecting to see. They're going to save switch into Jellicent. Oh my goodness, this poor opponent is core broken to shreds by the Wigglycott. I'm farming up with the Wigglycott, going for the Grass Knot. My opponent is going to have to shield if they want to hold on to this energy. They are going to shield. I'm going to switch into the Ampharos. Ampharos, I can tank any one move here. Shadow Ball would do quite a lot of damage. I'm going to let this through, and it is going to be a Surf bait from the Jellicent. My plan here is to now shield and go for the farm down, as that is the Shadow Ball. I am able to get the farm down, and I leave with the Focus Blast loaded. The Zygarde already took some damage, but it's an extremely bulky Pokemon. In the back, opponent actually has their own Ampharos. This Focus Blast nearly gets the one-shot. Back in comes the Zygarde. Zygarde is going to be firing off the Crunch. Crunch not quite gonna KO. In comes HISUIan ARCANINE. ARCANINE's energy is completely walled here. And granted, we've already gotten the Zygarde deep into the red, but I need to see HISUIan ARCANINE take down a Zygarde. ARCANINE at the back-to-back Rock Slides here. Rock Slide will be shielded up by the Zygarde, but I have another one loaded. This is resisted damage. Zygarde is very bulky. Rock Slide does pick up the knockout, and that's game over. Moving into the next match, leading Wigglycott into Shadow Poliwrath. On paper, this matchup should be amazing, but Poliwrath is able to hit for massive super effective damage with Icy Wind, and as I'm now learning, Poliwrath can also win CMP over Wigglycott. One of the unfortunate things about not even maxing at 2300 CP is you're going to be losing a lot of CMP ties. The Grass Knot is shielded. I'm farming up to the Moonblast, but unfortunately, Icy Wind after 7 to the first is 6 to the second, so it's going to be another CMP tie that unfortunately I am still not going to be able to win. I'm firing off the Moonblast. Even at -2, this will hurt. Moonblast gets the attack drop. I will outpace here. I have to watch for the switch. I wait a turn. Opponent is going to try and catch onto the Ready Steel. I can send in Shadow Ampharos. Ampharos does win the zeros here. I can tank a Focus Blast and then fire off a Focus Blast of my own. They go for the Zap Cannon, fishing for the debuff, but the luck is not on their side. They do not get the attack drop, and now I can connect with the Focus Blast and take Registeel off the field. In the back, opponent has Giratina, and oh my goodness, things are looking very good here, as Shadow Ampharos will hit for big damage with the Brutal Swing. Opponent firing off the energy, throwing in the middle of the Volt Switch here. They go for the Dragon Claw. Can they get the farm down? No. The Ampharos 0-15-15, the rank 8, able to connect with another brutal swing. Opponent is 1 off an Icy Wind. They switch into the Poliwrath, and I switch into the Arcanine. I'm able to catch the Icy Wind where it is going to be heavily resisted. These counters shredding through the Arcanine, but Arcanine able to withstand the damage and make it to the Wild Charge. Wild Charge will pick up the knockout onto the Poliwrath. In comes the Giratina. Giratina does make the last second charge move. Due to my debuff defense, this will KO the Arcanine, but I can send in Whimsicott, Fairy Wind down, and take the game. We see same leads in the next match, now leading Whimsicott into a regular Poliwrath. Opponent save switches into Skeledirge, and this is looking pretty good. As if they're save switching a Skeledirge, then hopefully this is a bait out and they have the Talonflame in the back that I can destroy with the Arcanine. I'm farming up with the Ampharos. Ampharos able to make it to the Brutal Swing, and Brutal Swing is going to force a shield as they have a ton of energy available on the Skeledirge. They have enough for a Disarming Voice and a Shadow Ball. They fire off the Disarming Voice, so this way they can guarantee the final shield with the Shadow Ball. A Shadow Ball would absolutely knock out here. So I go down a shield, but I'm able to keep switch. In comes the Poliwrath. Poliwrath is going to be met with a Focus Blast. This is going to do quite a lot of damage. Focus Blast does get shielded by my opponent. The unfortunate thing is that Poliwrath, of course, has that super effective Icy Wind, so not only will they lower my attack, but that's going to do a solid amount of damage as well. I continue to farm up as the Whimsicott, going for the Grass Knot, and making sure that my opponent does not get the catch. This is a debuffed Grass Knot, but it's still going to hurt, getting them quite low. This is going to connect the Icy Wind, and here we get a bit of a visual bug. It says Meteor Mash because my opponent queued up a switch into Clefable, and Clefable has Meteor Mash, but it was an Icy Wind that landed. It's a very strange visual bug, and unfortunately for me, guess what's not in the back? It's not a Talonflame, it's a Clefable, and Clefable, well, let's see. Can it tank the 2 Wild Charges here? This is going to be close. Come on, Arcanine! Arcanine just cannot get the KO. Clefable with 1 HP makes the Meteor Mash, gets the knockout, and Whimsicott will get Fairy Winded down. Moving into the next match, leading Whimsicott into Giratina Origin. Even though Whimsicott does have the type advantage, Giratina Origin can do quite well here and actually win some even shield situations. Opponent is going to make a nice catch, however, catching the Grass Knot bait onto Shadow Ampharos. But the bad news for the Shadow Ampharos is Ampharos' energy can't do anything against Whimsicott. Again, Whimsicott doesn't get the 2300 CP, so it's a tough Pokemon to use, but I do really like its typing, as a lot of teams are not prepared for it. In comes a Powder Snow Ninetales. I've got to switch out right away as I send in the Shadow Ampharos. Even if they go for the Dazzling Gleam, that is something that I'm going to be able to tank. They do go for the Dazzling Gleam, and then I wait a turn to make sure they don't catch the Focus Blast on the Giratina, as that would be an absolute disaster. Opponent is going to commit the shield, and now I'm going to fully wait my timer because I am switch locked, but my opponent is not, and then in comes the Arcanine. Arcanine farming up. There's nothing the Ninetales can do here. It doesn't matter what they throw. I have the fire subtyping here. They're going to go for the Dazzling Gleam. That does not do a lot. In comes the Giratina. And if you remember, Giratina stored a bunch of energy earlier. They full send the Shadow Ball. I'm looking to switch into the Whimsicott, but this is an awkward spot to be in, down on energy. Opponent is going to be firing off their charge move. It's the Ominous Wind, and I commit the shield. I decide to go for the Grass Knot bait because even if they no shield here, this will put it into Rock Slide range. Opponent is going to no shield. I'm firing off the Grass Knot. Unfortunately, I do lose CMP. So this Giratina is proving to be quite difficult. In comes the Arcanine. I'm at the back-to-back Rock Slides. As long as I can get the knockout onto the Origin, I win the game. So I wait a turn, make sure I see that Shadow Claw start, fire off the Rock Slide will pick up the KO onto the Origin, and you can send back in the Ninetales, but Ninetales just does not have the damage output to win this game. Ninetales will go for the Weather Ball. That's not a problem for the Arcanine whatsoever, and the opponent concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, we see a terrible lead, Whimsicott into Talonflame. I'm going to be save switching into the Shadow Ampharos, and the opponent is going to respond with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord farming up, and I'm able to make it to the Focus Blast here. Do they respect the damage? They do! Opponent is going to respect it with a shield. I continue to farm up as the Ampharos. Opponent gets worried about a potential Focus Blast number 2, and they're going to fire off a Dragon Claw. But this is fine. Whimsicott is a wall to the standard moveset on Guzzlord. If they're running Dragon Claw and Crunch, Dragon Claw or Brutal Swing, that's not going to be a problem. But they're running Sludge Bomb. I nearly get one shot. You have got to be kidding me. As now I'm forced to shield a double resisted Dragon Claw because I have to get rid of the Guzzlord. In comes the Talonflame. Talonflame, its energy can't do a lot here, but I'm going to need a massive amount of energy on the Arcanine. I'm looking to farm up with the Arcanine and go for the Rock Slide. Rock Slide easily going to be picking up a knockout here. Rock Slide into the Talonflame. Opponent actually commits a shield. I'm going to let this through. Talonflame goes for another Flame Charge. Again, that's not going to be doing a whole lot to the Arcanine. I'm farming up, and I'm firing off another Rock Slide. No shields remaining for the opponent. This Rock Slide is guaranteed to get the knockout. The question is, can I stall long enough to switch? In the back, they have Golisopod. I have the back-to-back Wild Charges here. The question is, do I survive the Shadow Claw? No, I do not. And I just don't have enough energy to KO both their remaining Pokemon, and the opponent takes the win. Looking for a bit of redemption in the next match, leading Whimsicott into Giratina. Opponent save switches into Typhlosion. I don't have an amazing response to a Typhlosion save switch, so I am going to switch into the Arcanine. Arcanine goes for the Rock Slide. That does massive damage. They're at the Solar Beam here. This is an act of trust. Come on, Arcanine. Arcanine with 1 HP tanks the Solar Beam. Let's go, Arcanine. Opponent is going to be able to get the farm down with the Giratina, but I can send in the Whimsicott. Oh, and it's a Dragon Breath Giratina as well. Even better for the Whimsicott. I'm firing off this Moonblast. Moonblast will hit for massive super effective damage. In the back, it's Talonflame, and oh man, I definitely wish I still had my Arcanine, because again, Arcanine completely shuts down Talonflame. And Ampharos can still do well here, but not resisting Incinerate does make this matchup a bit awkward in the twos. As you can see, Ampharos, already below half health, going to be firing off this Brutal Swing, and the opponent is going to double shield, continuing to farm up. Ampharos getting the Volt Switch through. Again, timing when it's a 5-turn versus a 4-turn as the 5-turn is very, very awkward. I am able to get that farm down. Back in comes the Giratina into the loaded Brutal Swing from this Ampharos, and Ampharos will be able to take the win. We see a Nightmare lead in the next match, Whimsicott into Shadow Gliscor. This is a huge core breaker for the entire team. I'm going to save switch into the Shadow Ampharos, but I am in such a terrible spot. I was not anticipating running into Gliscor, or at least hoping I would not, so I'm in a lot of trouble here. They have enough for the Earthquake. My only hope is to try and call a bait, and I am able to call the bait. That's massive. I go for the Brutal Swing. Opponent makes a catch onto an XL Lantern. XL Lantern, definitely something that I had to bait out here, or it would absolutely crush the Arcanine in the back. They're going to fire off the Surf. Surf will pick up the knockout on the Ampharos, and now I can send in the Whimsicott and look to massively overfarm. Whimsicott is a complete wall to energy from Lantern, as with any grass type. They're going to fire off the Thunderbolt. That's not going to be a problem for Whimsicott. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Grass Knots, the first to get the knockout, and the second to threaten a shield from the Gliscor. Opponent, when they send in the Gliscor, they're going to have to shield because they've already taken some damage. They've taken some Volt Switches, and they've taken a Brutal Swing. In comes the Gliscor. I'm firing off this Grass Knot. That does get shielded. I farm up. I switch into the Arcanine as the opponent fires off their move. Is it the Aerial Ace? No. It's the Night Slash in the back. It's a counter Poliwrath. I do not have a win con, and I resign the match. Hopping into the final match, picking up a type advantage lead, but again, a tough lead here for the Whimsicott leading into the Regirock. Again, this is where having that 2300 CP and below is a bit awkward. I send in the Ampharos to check for any potential water or ground types lurking in the back, and what do you know, there's the Swampert. So the opponent is very weak to grass on their team, so I'm definitely going to need Whimsicott to put in a ton of work here. They go for the Hydro Cannon as the Swampert. Ampharos able to make it to the last second Brutal Swing. I wish that I had baited the first, as then I could have made a Focus Blast here, but unfortunately my opponent does get the shield call correct, so they don't have to commit a second shield. They go for the Hydro Cannon into the Whimsicott. Whimsicott going to be able to withstand this damage, but the resistant Hydros do add up over time. Aggressive switch by the opponent into the Regirock, and Regirock will fire off the Stone Edge. I'm going to commit the shield, farming up, and making it to the Grass Knot. Grass Knot will pick up the knockout here unless the opponent is willing to shield. They shield. It's a CMP tie, and that's actually big. I'm going to let this go, and I'm trusting in Hisuian Arcanine. I'm going to need Arcanine to clutch one more time for me. Opponent tries to go for the CMP tie, so I end up getting an entire Snarl for free. Stone Edge will be shielded. I'm looking to farm up to 100 energy. I do go a bit over 100 there, but I just want to have as much residual energy as possible. Rock Slide will get the KO in the back. Oh, look at the spice. They have Shadow Staraptor, but no shields to hide behind. This Wild Charge will get the one-hit KO. In comes the Swampert, and I have the back-to-back Wild Charges. This is resisted damage into the Swampert, but the Swampert succumbs to the Wild Charge, and we take the win. All in all, I had a lot of fun getting to run HISUIAN Arcanine. HISUIAN Arcanine is a fun pick considering how strong Talonflame and Incinerate are at the moment, and being able to spam out those Rock Slides with Snarl and resist everything it throws does make for some pretty enjoyable games. However, the downside of Talonflame being this strong is that other people are trying to counter it, and the more common thing that people use is water types. Being the fire and rock typing, this thing gets melted by any water type that it sees, and that's one of the many reasons why HISUIAN Arcanine unfortunately does not see meta play at the moment, is there's a lot of stuff that does very, very well into it. Meanwhile, when it comes to the Pokemon video games, I believe HISUIAN Arcanine has won like 7 tournaments in a row. It's very, very strong there, but in Go, unfortunately, it is in a bit of an awkward spot. As I mentioned, definitely a team for fun, not a team that I'd recommend for climbing. Elo was sacrificed to get these wins, but man, getting to hard counter a Talonflame with HISUIAN Arcanine when it's switch locked makes it all worth it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.